How long do you find it takes people to recover naturally from cancer?
Ooh, again, it's such a semantics question, right? Because people will get tripped up on that kind of hard metric question.
Hmm.
What's our definition of recovery? Let's start there.
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, so the hard metric that's used in the cancer world is NED. Again,
Okay.
it's going into like the scientific laboratory testing of no evidence of disease, whatever, whatever. And it's like it doesn't show up and register on whatever testing they do. I'm not even necessarily familiar with that testing specifically. But I think what's more important is to have a mental shift. And this is a very interesting quote that came from one of our coaches and when we were doing a podcast together, and it's just stuck with me the whole time. She said, "We all have cancer every day." And I think that's just such an
Hmm.
important mental shift to have amongst the conversation of cancer because it's so true. What is cancer? Like I said before, it's not some boogeyman that comes down from the sky and bites us, and now we have cancer.
Hmm.
Cancer is, quite simply put, just our own cells that are not healthy. They're
Mm,
mutated, they're askew, something's not right, they're toxic, whatever language you want to use. It's our own cells that just aren't healthy. And we all have those every day. Our body is constantly having cells. Cells are dying. Cells are getting unwell. Cells are regenerating. New cells are growing. Cells are purging. This is a constant state of any organism, any biological organism that's happening. And so when we use the mental framework of yes, we'll all have unhealthy cells any day. Perhaps those could be considered cancerous cells. We'll all have them every moment of every day. I'll have some, you guys will have some, whoever will have some, old, young, doesn't matter what age, what state of overall, health or illness. You all have a bit of cancer.
yeah.
But when we understand that, we understand what do we do? We take the actions that maximize the purging of those unwell cells and maximize the health of our cells overall to minimize the amount of our cells that are able to accumulate in a cancerous state or in an unhealthy state so that they never kind of become registered on testing if you go get testing as cancerous. So do we call recovery not having any unhealthy cancerous cells in you? Well, no, because then you'll never recover. You'll never be healthy in that regard.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? But if we
Hmm.
make
Yeah.
lifestyle changes to the point where we rid ourselves of any symptoms because we've rid ourselves of any actual kind of clumping up or you know huge accumulation, then
Hmm.
then that's recovery, I suppose. And then
Yeah.
people call that living with cancer or
Yeah.
Hmm.
managing cancer.
Yeah.
So what are like some daily habits or little daily things that some people can do to kind of manage our daily symptoms of cancer? Like I hear a lot of people talking about fasting, like how whenever you fast, it gives your body time to kind of like cleanse the body of the cancerous cells. Is that uh, an accurate statement?
Yeah, fasting is a great thing. Fasting is a very powerful tool, but like any powerful tool, it's important to understand that it has to be used responsibly and with nuance, right? Should everyone fast all the time and it's applicable to everybody? No, absolutely not. You have to consider one, your current state of health, what your body's going through, two, your gender, if you're a woman, you have to consider your monthly cycle and what's phase of that you're in because it's vastly different for men and women due to our
Hmm.
natural biology. And again, are we doing a water fast? Are we doing a broth fast? Are we doing a fruit fast? Are we doing, there's all these different kinds of fasts.
Mm-hmm.
And leave your body alone and stop forcing it to digest things so it can kind of focus on turning inwards and sending energy inwards to healing rather than to further digestion. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
in the right circumstances, that could be hugely powerful, autophagy, all that good stuff, promotion of HGH even at a certain level, all great stuff and very powerful. But at certain times and in certain instances, your body might absolutely need nutrients. At the very little, or at the very baseline, it's definitely going to need electrolytes. So you, again, it's a powerful tool. It needs to be used in the right circumstances and used responsibly. But
Yeah. There's just so many things that go into it based on who you're working with, because everybody's a little bit different. So what are, like, whenever you're evaluating a patient or somebody that you're trying to that is allowing this information, somebody that wants to learn about it, what are some of the kind of questions that you ask them in order to gauge where their thought process is in the holistic healing process right now versus the information that you want to give them?
that's interesting. And again, I'll send it back to, I don't necessarily work one-on-one with people for cancer specifically. I am not
Okay.
the counselor nor the coach, but I think if someone does seek out the organization that I work with or seek out the holistic healing,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps they're already a little bit open to it,
Yeah.
But and I think, I mean, I have worked with a lot of people myself personally, not in an official professional capacity, but just out of the goodness of my heart because I enjoy helping people that seek my help. And when I work with someone to improve their health, you just have to meet them where they are. There's
Yeah.
not a one size fits all way to introduce information, just like there's not a one size fits all on how to enact that information. Everyone kind of speaks their own language. Everyone speaks their own kind of, yeah, everyone just kind of has their different place that they're at. So the ultimate goal of a healing practitioner is to find where that is and meet them at that vibration. Because if you try to do too much too soon, you're gonna turn them off entirely, or we're talking about introducing concepts mentally. Yeah, you just, it just depends where someone's at. Does that answer the question? Or
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just curious, what was it in your, like, life complex that led you to seek this information? Like, was there a specific turning point in your life that you were like, okay, I need to start learning about this stuff?
yeah. So, I was an example of someone, not that this makes me special, because I think there are very many people out there that have this experience, that I grew up, my parents weren't necessarily based, they were an Americanized immigrant and just a general American person that
Mhm.
went about life and health the way that society goes about life and health, for better or for worse, mostly for worse. And just always knew it was wrong. Just always knew it was garbage, I went to elementary school, saw what was going on. The books didn't make sense. The way they were telling people to do things was garbage. It didn't make sense. And I always liked to observe, even as a young child, what people were doing and what they were getting out of what they were doing. And you just kind of, I just saw through the veil, that was created and pulled over most people's heads. But as a youngin, like most people, I'm like, all right, well, that's the way the world is. What can you do? You just make the best of it. So I went to university, got a degree, changed around what I thought I was going to do and get into as a profession, ended up working a job in finance. And I had an entry-level job in finance out of university. And it was so easy. Like it was just, data entry, call center type stuff at a investment firm. And the job was so easy that I would spend time on Instagram, scrolling Instagram, doing whatever garbage on my phone. And I just happened to come across some bit of posts and some area of Instagram, and the algorithms just started feeding me this information as I
Yeah.
started liking one post and another post. And I just started diving into all the different rabbit holes, for better or for worse. I was like, oh, what's going on in the food? What's going on in the water? What are they putting in the air? Who's
Yeah.
eating children? Like, what is going on? And so what is fractional reserve banking? What is the Federal Reserve? And so it just resonated deeply in me, the types of stuff that I was looking into. And so I just kept looking into it. I kept having the time to do so because
Yeah.
it's so easy. And I definitely kind of had a bit of a like, wow, I don't know what to do. Like everything is a wrong. It's like you always
Yes.
know everything's wrong, but you don't know quite the extent of how everything is wrong.
Yeah.
And so I, couldn't handle it, deleted all the pages. That lasted maybe an hour the next day at work.
Mhm.
dove back into it. And, since then, I've just been developing my internal intuition, my radar of truth or bullshit meter of,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, this makes sense and this is real. Okay, no, this is an agent of disinformation trying to make this all look silly or discredit this, or you kind of
Mhm.
just learn to navigate it because not everything in that sphere of the internet, if you will, is valid or real, whether it's malintended or just malinformed. That's of course has a spectrum as well. But I just started uncovering truths of the world, and I
Mhm.
love myself very much. And I'm all about optimizing my existence. So when I absorb a piece of information and it resonates, I have to act on it. And so I started making changes in my own existence, getting better and better results in my overall life fulfillment and my overall mental health, physical health, what have you. And I've just been kind of experimenting from there in diving down what they call rabbit holes.
Yeah.
What's a current rabbit hole you're going down?
I kind of been down them all, man. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe, hopefully, I've been down the
Yeah.
clean ones, the dark ones. I've seen them all. Now I'm in a bit more of a functional phase of my life where, I'm doing things specifically that advance me in my ventures of world conquest.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I kind of have a working understanding of most things, I would say. Of course, I don't know everything, and there's always new things I can learn, but I keep it pretty functional these days. I think all things happen in waves and cycles. All things are
Mhm.
cyclical, and all things have their phases and their time. So I had my time where I wasn't necessarily doing as much functional activity in my own life, and so I was
Mhm.
able to spend a lot of time deliberating or looking into these things, and now I'm in an action phase. So am I diving down any one particularly right now? No, not necessarily. Let's
Yeah.
let's get rich rabbit hole, maybe. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that that's kind of where I am now. Like whenever we first started the podcast, I was really in like you said, like the pursuit of truth. Like you just get to the point where you're asking questions about everything,
Yeah.
like different religions, life philosophies, like everything, the pursuit of truth. And now I'm kind of like you, like I'm in the action phase. I'm not really as focused on that stuff right now, but I'm still at the point where it's like I don't know, you're just in the pursuit of truth. I want to know the truth. And what sucks about that is I'm afraid that I'll never actually know like the truth. And that's what I feel like the journey of life is. It's just like trying to figure out where I don't know, you as a human believe in all these different philosophies and physical health and fitness and all the holistic stuff. Like I'm a big believer in getting morning sunlight and grounding and walking barefoot on the grass to recharge yourself as a human being. Um, but I don't know, I've just gone through those different phases where I'm in the pursuit. But that's something that I really love about podcasting is because we can get all these interesting guests like yourself that have different views than other guests, and just it helps me kind of solidify the thoughts that I've already had in my head and question some of the other beliefs that I have been questioning.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a natural arc, I think, for a lot of people. You go from the exploratory phase to the dissemination phase. And I think, for myself, it's the right time finally to start getting it out there, right? And when I was learning all along, I was also kind of putting stuff on Instagram and I'd repost, and, I had, God, hundreds of thousands of like Instagram stories specifically is where I posted it.
Mm-hmm.
But all I look back and some of it was kind of asinine because what I was saying then, I thought it, but I didn't know it, and some of it was even downright wrong by my
Yeah.
standards now or by my further comprehensions now. And so I think that's something to consider in anyone diving down something they don't know. Don't speak. It might be better to just continue to deliberate before you go trying to spread what you might believe is truth in the moment, because
Mhm.
it's a very noble desire to, hey, wow, ooh, this is good, this is important, this is real, let me tell everybody, let me tell the world. But when you don't give it the due time to deliberate if it is
Mhm.
actually a message that you want to get behind or full-heartedly know,
Mm-hmm.
it not only does a disservice to yourself in the sense that you can make yourself look quite foolish, but you could also do a disservice to the overall movement of truth and to the message that you are trying to get out there if you don't have the full comprehension or full ability to eloquate it to kind of spread the message in its rightful way. And
Yeah, that's so true.
I think it's important, like that's why it's so hard for a lot of people to find good mentors or courses and stuff to follow, because like you said, people will learn something and just think it's truth and then start speaking on it. I think the best coaches and people to listen to are the people that have actually applied the shit that they're talking about to their life and seen specific results, and somebody that can show the person, look, this is what I did and this is the result that I got. Those are the people you need to listen to, rather than like me, for instance, like going through and thinking I know information and then just trying to distribute it as fact.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know, it's the old quote. What is it? It's better to keep your mouth shut and be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove any doubt at all. You know?
Yeah.
And that's why it's a beautiful thing now. The podcast that I'm doing came out at such a it was just the perfect time for it, where I'm ready to start truly expressing my voice in a healthy way, in a composed way. I've deliberated all the deliberative points. Do I know everything? No. Is the way that I think now going to be the way I think a month from now or a year from now? Perhaps not. But I do very much feel it is the time for me to start speaking, and so I've done so, and I'm certainly not going to stop.
What do you find is some of the more controversial areas that you talk about?
Man, I'll talk about them all. Everything's controversial. Everything that's real is controversial, whether it's, men being men and women being women and the dynamics between the two, whether it is the fundamentals of health and wellness. And when you live in a world that's completely upside down and artificial and everything that's said is wrong, left is right and up is down and black is white and man is woman, and speaking the truth to a crazy world, it's all controversial, so just pick your flavor. Everyone's offended by their own particular favorite topic.
Yeah.
I do believe that, if you are trying to spread the truth, like a medicine or cancer and stuff, if it's not delivered well, you will shut off minds from accepting that as the truth. And especially if you're telling the truth, but not well put, it's almost a disservice, like you're saying, to the whole idea of the movement, getting the word out there that the food is bad. Watch out for the chemicals you use and things like that.
Absolutely. A message is absolutely meaningless if not for the right messenger. It doesn't matter how right you are. If you come across boring or stupid or again, and there's not necessarily one universal right way to deliver a message. It all is dependent upon the audience. I don't speak to my mother the way I'd speak to an 18-year-old boy, the way I'd speak to a 50-year-old man, the way, it's a proper messenger can curate the message in tonality and deliverance for the appropriate audience. And I have my own way about me, and even between episodes, I kind of have a different flavor to my presentation depending on the energy of my guests. Of course, I like to be respectful of what they are kind of bringing to the table, but I kind of mix it up.
You almost have to become a chameleon. Like you have to become the person that you need to be in whatever situation that you're in. And I tell, I'll tell people this, and like specifically, one of my brothers was like, well, if you're always doing that, then like you aren't being authentic. Like this was his argument, like you're not being authentic, like you're being fake. And it's like, I'm not. You just have to understand, like you said, your audience and give them the message that they're able to receive, because someone's going to be able to receive the message in one way and another person is not. It's going to completely lock them down, shut them down based on, I don't know, your tonality and how you are with that said person.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where it's important not to get autistic about things, right? And to understand things at a meta level, because I too am a chameleon. I'll say it. I've been told, and I know it because I do it consciously.
Yeah.
I chameleon to who I'm speaking with at a certain level while also maintaining authenticity, though. It's not a dichotomy. Those two are not mutually exclusive, right? Like I said, if I'm talking to this person, that person, different cultures, different languages, I am a different version of me, but it's still me. And not
Yes.
everyone can comprehend that looking from the outside or looking from the outside in, yeah. Or because
Mm,
they can't do it themselves, but or they just don't they don't understand communication at an overall level. But I lived in Puerto Rico for a few years,
Mm.
and I laugh now, and I was doing business there as well, and I laugh now. But like when I was talking to people there, it's entirely different. Like even when I was speaking English and not Spanish to them, even when I was speaking English, like it wasn't like I was speaking to you. I would sound like I was a Puerto Rican Spanish speaking native speaking English.
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
But then people were warm to it. People like people that are like them.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so when I'm talking to a southerner, suddenly I'm having a southern drawl. When I'm talking to, a different an Indian person, suddenly I have a bit of an Indian accent. And now of course it's an art to doing so, not
Mm-hmm.
to sound like you're mocking them, but to, you just kind of meet people where they are. And
Yeah.
you can do that authentically. People like that. People like people that are
Yeah.
like them naturally.
It's the whole mirror effect. Like you mirror the person and then much more like it makes them more comfortable around you. Like I was a bartender and a server for 6 years and I was obsessed with human psychology. And that's why I started bartending in the first place, because I do not think there is a better atmosphere or work environment where you can observe and get to know such a vast variety of people in such a short amount of time. So, and I know exactly what you're saying. Like you'll have a group of people that have a heavy Southern accent, and then mine comes out with
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, and it's not being inauthentic. It's just I don't know me. Like I don't even think about it now. Now it's just like that's who I am. Like I'm authentic. That's who I am in that situation because I know that's what's going to make them most comfortable and uh, what's the word? Receptive of the information that I'm gonna give them or
Of
whatnot.
course, and of course, the meta level of it all is it might happen automatically, but still remaining conscious of it because it can be just as much a tool to turn that off and not do it. And because sometimes the appropriate thing is to not do it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Sometimes you do just in my Jersey accent, no, like no, this is me, blah blah blah. Like,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it is time to kind of tone yourself down and speak a different way or whatever. Or sometimes it is time to just show up the most pure version of yourself. And
Yeah.
so, again, all things have their nuance, and
Yeah.
there's effective times and places for having that and also shutting it off. Because
Mm-hmm.
when people don't know how to shut it off, those people are also very lost as well. Because then that's when it gets into the realm, like whoever you said was saying it was talking about, in you don't even actually genuinely know yourself if you are just unconsciously chameleon
Mm-hmm.
to everyone around you.
Hmm.
When it's
Mm-hmm.
tactical, it's a good thing. When you're just a feather in the wind, well, now it's indeed very
Mm-hmm.
dangerous.
Yeah, because when you're tactical about it and conscious about it, then you're much more able to get your point across in whatever situation you're in. Because sometimes you just need to switch up your attitude just a little bit to reiterate like your point across to people, and they understand a little bit more whenever you're conscious about it, and you can
Yeah,
make those decisions.
yeah, absolutely. Communication's everything, right? And there's so many interesting tricks but I say tricks and it even kind of sounds cheapening of it,
it's
right?
got it's got a negative connotation to it. It just like it
Yeah.
just does, but that like you understand like that's not how it is. Like you're not trying to deceive anybody. You're just trying to, I don't
Yeah.
know, help them without them knowing it.
Hopefully, right? All
Yeah.
like any tool, it's not inherently good, it's not inherently evil, it's in the eye or it's in the hands of the user, right?
Hmm.
Chameleoning doesn't hurt people, people hurt people, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah.
essential for some fields like bartending or sales or anything client facing. You have to be able to deliver yourself in a way that's receptive to people. And everyone's going to be receptive in a slightly different way.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like, are you selling to a woman? Are you a good-looking man? You flirt him up a little bit, you play into it. Are you talking to a man? Well, you're not going to do that, are you? Hopefully,
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna switch topics up here a little bit.
Sure.
Because me and Andrew were talking a little bit earlier, before we hopped on about whenever I was in a stage in my life where I was really big into like journaling and meditating, and I felt like I was my most uh I don't know, productive self whenever I was in that stage of my life, like maybe just uh spiritually, like I felt like I knew myself a little bit better. So I was just curious if I can get your opinion, like what do you think about uh meditating and journaling and grounding and stuff in that sphere?
Yeah. So it's a fantastic question, and there's one outlier in the list that you just gave, because
Okay.
grounding as a physical practice is very much a different thing than meditating. I think grounding as a physical practice is inherently a biological function that our bodies are needed, or
Hmm.
our bodies need. Our bodies are bioelectrical beings, right? They're bioelectrical. I have electricity in my body, and that is the only reason I can do things on the phone, because the
Hmm.
electricity flowing through my fingers can interact with this screen.
Right.
Anyone who's familiar with any electronics, whether it's vehicular electronics or home electronics, know that there's two parts of electronics. There's the power, there's the ground. And the ground is absolutely an essential part of that device, and that device cannot function in its intended function without the ground pathway being proper, being properly strong, being properly flowing, what have you. You disrupt a ground pathway, and either a device isn't going to work at all, or you're going to experience all sorts of electrical gremlins and problems, whatever.
Hmm.
So
Mm.
why would our bodies be any differently? And now you got to consider our intended design, and the inherent biological design of our bodies, and how we were designed to interact with the world around us. We were designed by God to interact with the world around us in nature. And in nature, as we walk around, bare skin to earth, to soil, to grass, to sand, to water, whatever, that electrical pathway gets grounded. The ground
Hmm.
is there. And there's all sorts of studies for the study nerds to show all the benefits of grounding. And so I do ground, but the primary way I do it, again, I'm in a very action-packed point of my life, right? I don't necessarily take the time to let me go, you know, sit and meditate under a tree, but I do ground every single night with a grounding sheet, because grounding doesn't have to be that complicated. It's just completing a circuit. So I have a sheet that's organic cotton and then has silver metallic fibers in it. So that creates
Hmm.
a conductive pathway. And then it has a wire, and then you get the wire to a grounded path, and bam, grounded. Is it as good as bare earth? Probably not. But I also do that as much as possible, hanging out with the dogs in the yard barefoot.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of keep that a little separate, because I do think that's essential no matter what. Meditation, though, I'll address that, and journaling perhaps is even its own discussion. Meditation is such an interesting topic, and I have very strong opinions on. To me, there's obviously the common thought of meditation, where it's, clear your mind, clear your space, total silence, empty your thoughts.
Mm.
Does that have some value in the right circumstances? Yeah, a lot of people never stop the eternal distraction train of, things kind of entering their mind externally to even figure out their calibration point internally in their own mind. So in the right circumstances, yes, get alone with your thoughts. It's a very powerful exercise and a practice. However, there's not that only one way to meditate. To me, I live in meditation constantly. I'm meditating right now. I'm meditating as I walk my dogs. I'm meditating as I brush my teeth. I'm meditating as I'm talking to people. I meditate as I'm eating my food. It's all meditation to me. Because while I'm doing all of these activities throughout my day to day life, I am also thinking about them and analyzing them and assessing them and thinking about my thinking and thinking about what's going on at a meta level. And to me, that's meditation. It's just being hyper present and hyper
Mm.
focused at all levels of reality. To me, that's a meditative practice, and one that I encourage all people to do, because to me, that's just conscious living, and that's just getting the most out of every moment. Now, that doesn't mean I don't surrender to moments in certain times and allow myself to be perhaps more in the physical rather than also in my thoughts. You know, there's a time and a place for all things, but to me, even that's a meditation. To me, conscious existence is meditation itself.
Okay. Yeah, because me, well, like I always thought about meditation, like just bringing yourself to the present moment, like just simply existing in the present moment. And you're talking about you're meditating all the time, and it's just being present in the moment. I've never like structured it that exact same way in my mind.
Yeah, it's like
I've never structured it like that.
active meditation. As I'm answering my Telegram messages and having a conversation and also listening to a podcast and also planning my next podcast for like an hour from now, I'm
Yeah.
meditating, you know?
Yeah, you're doing it day by day.
Yeah, and I'm enjoying it. See, the thing is, people have this dichotomy, like I said, of function and being in the now, of doing things and being in the now, because a lot of people can't do things without getting caught up and washed away and wrapped up in it all in an unhealthy way. It's the bridging of the two, because I think being isolated on either side of it is unhealthy and certainly suboptimal. Because
Yeah.
you're not getting anything done on this side, or you're getting it done, but you're going to perhaps burn out and you're not optimizing what you are getting done on the other side.
Yeah. So for the people that maybe haven't meditated before, like me specifically, I find in order to be in the present moment, I have to stop thinking about stuff in the future. Like my mind is constantly running. Like I mean, there's like 4 or 5 businesses running up here, like
Yeah.
at any given moment. And so is it one of those things like you're constantly thinking about all these different areas of your life, from your health to fitness to, is this company working out? Like, oh, I got to get this done. Or whenever you're just walking your life, you're just completely present in that moment. And like whenever those other factors of your life come up, you're completely present in those moments. I find I just have a difficult time just like silencing my brain and being present right here.
Yeah, you know, there's a time and a place for everything, and there's no universal answer to that question, right? You have to comprehend what you want and understand how to act accordingly. And you also have to comprehend your energetic levels. There's times where I am on and I can do these 6 different things at one time and do them all effectively and do them all well.
Yeah.
And there's times where I need to chill out. I need to cut all of those things away and focus on the one, or perhaps it's not even a direct correlation with my energy levels. Perhaps it's just, hey, this task I want to give my all to right now.
Yeah.
And certain things, you know, it's everything is a sliding scale, and there's always a time and place for everything. You have to consider what what front of your life you want to attend to, and if you can address it only in isolation, or truly address it in unison with others at any given moment. It's a constant analysis, even in it of itself. In can I do this in one way versus the other?
Yeah.
How often do you listen to music?
It ranges, it varies. Yeah, it definitely ranges.
How do you
Sometimes
choose your music?
just depends on the vibe, bro. It depends on the
Okay.
vibe I'm riding, you know? It's
Yeah.
my Spotify playlist is so crazy. It goes from anything from like hardcore gangster rap to like hardcore religious music to, beautiful feminine poetic songs and music to like just ridiculous funny things to coal miner vibe music,
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Childers, whatever his name is, to pirate music. Sometimes I'm in a pirate vibe. Like,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It all just depends. Like my playlist. I mean, I don't even have playlists. I just have like my liked songs on
yeah,
Spotify, and
yeah,
I'm the exact same way.
yeah.
It'll go from like
Yeah.
my happy party country music to like the sad gym music next, and then yeah, it just rotates.
Yeah, it depends what energy I'm looking to conjure up and call up on. It's not even necessarily activity dependent. It's just vibe dependent, bro. I'll
Mm-hmm.
work out to some pirate music. I'll work out to some rap. I'll work out to some beautiful female, poetic songs.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
It just depends on what you're feeling right then.
yeah,
Have you ever heard the people talking about tuning the music either to 444 hertz or 432 hertz?
yeah.
What do you think about that?
So I have not conducted experiments myself, so I'll preface it all with that. But I certainly think it's valid. All things are a matter of waves and cycles, and vibrations are waves and cycles, and frequencies are waves and cycles. So certainly the frequency that we tune our music to can do different things. And when studies have been done or been alleged to have been done, and I've seen videos, I didn't do it myself, so there's always that caveat, but several people have alleged to repeat this. And different frequencies have different effects on water. This is the most kind of digestible avenue to explain this in. When different frequencies have different effects on water, in the sense that certain frequencies cause disruption and chaos in water, whether that's water that's exposed to certain frequencies kills the plants that it waters, or the freezing of certain waters exposed to certain frequencies form chaotic and unformed crystalline structures in the ice structures, versus other frequencies being exposed to music, then flourish plants and make them flourish wonderfully, versus neutral water that wasn't exposed to anything, making it kind of like here the certain frequencies will make water grow even more, and then the certain frequencies being exposed shown to certain water will cause the freezing of that water to happen in beautiful crystalline structures, very geometrical and symmetrical, etc. We understand, okay, from that, extrapolate that water is affected by frequency. It can be chaotic or it can be harmonized via frequency. And then our bodies are whatever percent they say water,
Yes,
90%,
70 or
whatever,
80,
whatever.
something like that. Yeah.
80, 90, whatever. So, our bodies, the cells are X amount water, a majority of it. Well, if frequency can make water disrupted or it can make water harmonious, and our bodies are mostly water,
Yeah.
the water in our bodies can be made disrupted or made harmonious. And then you could extrapolate out the potential ramifications of one avenue or the other from there,
Yeah.
whether it's emotional disturbance, whether it's physical disturbance, and health from there. It's not that difficult to comprehend
Yeah.
without a study or physical hard science evidence. So if you're not a nerd about it, it's not that difficult.
Yeah. Well, that's one of those things. That's where like your personal self-talk is so important, because you've seen I've seen those experiments where they have like they have 3 cups of water, they put yeast in all the water, and they have them in separate rooms, and every single day somebody goes in there and looks at the water and is like, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, and then goes into another room and tells the other one, I love you, I love you, I love you, giving it these different frequencies. And the one that they go into and say, I hate you, it starts molding and turning black and turning gross. And the one that they have over here just stays the same and is beautiful in its own, doesn't start molding or getting dark or nasty or anything. And I believe it's the same thing for us and our bodies and our self-talk. Like whenever you're that person that you're constantly like, oh, woe is me, I hate my life, like everything goes bad, like that's the energy and the frequency that you're creating in those water molecules in your body, and it can be cancerous. And I think vice versa, the other way around, if you have like the positive self-talk, like you're sure of yourself, like, okay, I am who I am, I love myself whether anybody else does or not, like I'm a capable being in all these other realms. That's going to change the molecules of your body and change your outlook on life, and start, I don't know, that's when you start getting presented the opportunities in life. Like everything works together like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We need to be conscious of our diet at all times. And our diet isn't just the food that we put in our mouths, it's everything that enters our existence, period. From the
I
more
like that.
Yeah.
things.
That's a good definition.
Yeah, exactly. Our diet is just what we are consuming, and we consume in all the different avenues, whether it is food, whether it's body products, things that we're absorbing in the water, in the air, etc. But also the mental diet. What are we mentally consuming? We have to be conscious of the external things that we end up consuming, because those will shape our subconscious as well as they kind of absorb into there, especially if we don't have the conscious filter at all times, because we're in that protective meditative state that can filter out the whatever's around you. But it's most powerful when it comes from our own self voice as well, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
You know, that's a great way to put the meditative state. It really does kind of put up a mental shield to help you block out negative thoughts or negative things you're seeing or hearing on, you know, television or the radio.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And that helps you kind of enjoy life because it's no secret that rap music or a lot of modern music, but rap is often mentioned, is nasty in its language and messaging and stuff. And there's sometimes I'll listen to some music, and some of it I just never do because it's just too much. But sometimes, like, I'll listen to a song that's just awful in its lyrics, but like I'll consciously like laugh at it, like, oh my God, this is crazy. And I'll still vibe off the energy, but no, it's awful. Just vibe off the energy and laugh it off. And there's other times I am conscious that my fortress, my mental fortitude is at a lessened state. Perhaps I'm more tired, or it's just been a while, or there's just a lot going on and I need a bit more inner peace. I cannot, and I choose not to allow that around me. And I'm like, all right, I gotta turn shit off and put on something else, you know? And so when you're able to consciously monitor yourself, you can account for what is going on around you, and then you can curate your reality to not just optimize your existence, because you could get autistic and nerdy about that and not have any fun, but then you could really just enjoy the worldly things and the modern things that we have in front of us today, without necessarily guilt or it being something that you have to completely shy away from.
Well, I find too, especially in conversations, you can feel the conversation maybe take a turn toward complaining or gossiping or doom and glooming, and you really notice the very subtle internal feelings of how it makes you feel. And then
Yeah,
you can kind of help
absolutely.
redirect the conversation to a more positive space. Or
Exactly.
even your self-talk. You'll mid-sentence, you realize, oh, I'm going down a complaint spiral, or oh, I'm about to start talking gossip about some guy. Then you can catch yourself and redirect your own stream of thought.
Exactly. And it's such a fun, social experiment to do with the people around you in calling out and then breaking those loops, because that they're just so ingrained to exist within, and that's all they know, to complain or victim mindset themselves, or when they start spewing that out, I don't want that around me.
Yeah.
It's sticky, it's gross, and it's just not productive, and I don't want that around me. So yeah, 9 times out of 10, I would say, when someone starts spewing any sort of bullshit, even if it's not directed at me, even if it's them saying it to about themselves, but
Yeah.
I'm around, or they're saying it to me about themselves, I'll either disengage entirely and let them know, hey, goodbye. I'm not talking about this, whatever.
Yeah.
Or I'll give them the heads up, like, hey, you are doing this. That's probably not in your best favor. Consider not doing that. And of course, everyone has their different levels of reaction to that.
Yeah.
And if they keep doing it, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to politely excuse myself from the conversation because this is not good for my health now. Goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw this study where like going back to the music, like how music does programming, and if you're not conscious about it, like people like
Yeah.
all the rap music and stuff, it just like subconsciously programs a lot of a lot of depression and just hatred in a lot of people. And so I saw this one thing where the psychologists, how they would analyze their patients before they would go about the healing process, is they would just pull up their Spotify playlist. Like they would just pull up their liked songs, and you can scroll through their music and see where they were at in that certain like area of their life. You'll see 3 or 4 songs that are like all sad and depressing. He was like, okay, well, what was going on here? They really just get a backstory behind how they got to where they are now. Because then there's like 4 or 5 songs that are all happy and upbeat and motivational, and that was a time in their life whenever they were like feeling a lot better. And so it's really, really cool how music can program people, but people don't even realize it. Like it's all subconscious for most people.
Yeah, it's certainly all subconscious for most people because most people just aren't existing consciously, period.
Hmm.
And that's such a disservice to themselves because when we understand that everything around us is going to play a part in programming us in one degree or the other, and
Yeah.
we are not consciously aware of what we are, one, choosing to expose ourselves to, but also the effect that anything that we are being exposed to via our own doing or otherwise is having on us, then you're just at the mercy of the world, and the world's not your friend. Like
Hmm.
Yeah.
the world's not your friend. You're either being advertised to or manipulated or coerced or something. It's it's only a disservice to oneself to not be present in every moment in that way of analyzing.
Yeah. I gotta ask you, like, I know you started your journey just by like seeing things on social media and then start going into rabbit holes, but somebody that is not necessarily a newbie, what's one of your like deep books that you've read that you've got like a lot of your information from, or are you a big reader?
Nah, you're asking the wrong person, man. Books are slow. Books are old. Books are, I don't. I have a
Not a
few
big fan.
books.
Yeah.
Are any worth mentioning right now to the general public? Not necessarily, but and that's the hard thing. I like, and you know what the harder thing to answer that is I've read so many excerpts from so many books
Mm,
presented in different here, there,
Yeah.
everywhere, whatever, but I don't hoard the information, right? I've never like created a library or catalog of posts or articles or this, that, the other. I'm functional. It's like, okay, if I'm exposed to something briefly and briefly look into it, or even if I deep dive into it, I don't go into it with the intention of, ooh, I'm gonna have to prove this to someone later, or I'm gonna have to convince someone of this
mm,
later. So it's like I'll get what I need out of the topic, get that functional comprehension or even that deep comprehension of it, and then like,
move
okay, it
on.
just gets lost in my internet history. Like,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's kind of how my research is the last, I don't know how many years. It just seems like there's more efficient ways to retrieve information now with online access than it used to be. Buying the book, sitting there reading it.
Hmm.
Audiobooks are great, but even then you might just need to have a couple excerpts or you might have a certain thing here or there. So you end up ingesting a ton of knowledge without necessarily checking off like a book list, you
Yeah.
know?
yeah, and it's like I like books. My grandfather, he on my father's side, is a beautifully intelligent man, a real wise guy, and he had just his whole basement, floor
Hmm.
to ceiling, wall to wall, books.
Hmm.
And I admire that. I think it's cool. I would certainly like to accumulate a physical collection of information because it's a safe store of information. I am pro book. I
Hmm.
absolutely support books. Just myself, for better or for worse, whether it's an innate part of my personality or perhaps I have a bit of TikTok brain. I struggle to sit down and read a book.
Yeah.
I yeah.
I think a lot of people don't read books the right way. If they're somebody that's just searching for information, like people will give you a book and be like, "Hey, read this book." And most people in their head, they're like, "Okay, start at page 1, let's read through it and whatever information we get, we get." Where I think it's almost better if somebody like recommends a book to you. I wouldn't say start at the very beginning. Go through the chapters and find one that interests you. Something that just like piques your interest a little bit because you're going to be much more open to like sitting down and reading and wanting to learn that information rather than starting from the beginning and being like, oh, I wonder when they're going to get to the juicy stuff. Like, I wonder when it's going to get to the stuff that I want to learn. Why even sit there and waste the time when you can just go and pick the chapter that you want to learn, read that, and then apply that, and then maybe later on come back and apply something else.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach to life, period, because it's an intuitive approach. But however, begs the conversation of how most people, their intuition muscle has atrophied because they've been led into modern society that strays them away from using their intuition and in fact force feeds them things that go directly against their intuition
Mm,
until that muscle and that behavior atrophies, and it gets to a point where people don't trust their intuition
Mm.
or don't use it or even distrust that intuition when they have an internal resonance feeling and something's kind of registering in them, it freaks them out and kind of turns them away from it. And so it would need that internal guiding force to be able to do what you're saying. And anyone who doesn't necessarily have that is going to have to go the route of, hey, let me, read all of this to ever possibly get what I need out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I get exactly what
You
you're
know, what's
saying.
funny is I developed a lot of my own reliance on my own intuition and gut instinct from women trying to gaslight me. And then every single time I had a weird gut intuition, somehow the universe let me see that I was right, whether it was like 6 months in the future, a year in the future. But somehow, whenever I had that feeling, and then I was convinced, no, I'm overthinking it. I'm getting paranoid. No, it's always true.
No.
You know,
Yeah.
how did that's a really interesting way to put it, the intuition muscle, because that is true, and that's a very like essential skill for life nowadays. How do you develop that?
Just using it, man. Using it. That's
Mm-hmm.
it. It's like a muscle. How do you get biceps? You lift,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's you got to just get in the cycle of using it, but then also getting the feedback, because all things are nuanced. And like you were saying, you use such a hot term, right? Gaslighting, gaslighting,
Mm-hmm.
gaslighting. This person's gaslighting me. This person's gaslighting me. Maybe sometimes people are, but maybe sometimes they're also right. And maybe you could gaslight someone that they're gaslighting you, and like not you specifically, but
Can't
maybe,
gaslight a gaslighter, baby. Come on.
dude, exactly. So understanding that it's a muscle and it takes practice to kind of work on that maneuver and then kind of perfect it or work to strengthen it. With that comes the understanding that you're going to be wrong sometimes and you're going to mess it up sometimes, right? You don't do every lift right every time. You drive a car,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you crash while you're learning, or like whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the
That's why
self
feedback is so important too. You have to
exactly.
verify these hunches or whatnot. Otherwise, you have to know which ones are real or false, I guess, and then
Yeah. Science.
slowly train yourself.
Yeah. So I guess the core question was how to get people into a flow of using their intuition. It's only practice. It's finding whatever that inner voice and inner self is calling out to you to say, and diving into it. And I guess the an actionable on that is cleaning up your physical health as much as possible,
Yeah.
because all spirituality and spiritual health and mental health, whichever realm you want to more so place intuition in, I think it's perhaps both. The greater your physical health is, the greater your capacity in those realms is going to be as well, because all the spiritual processes, if you will, have physical ties to different parts of the brain or perhaps the gut.
Yeah.
And so that's the direct first actionable. Clean up yourself physically to unlock those more esoteric abilities, if you will.
I can't remember the exact quote, but it's something like, we train the body day over day so it won't be disobedient to the mind. And gosh, I'm trying to remember the exact quote, but it was basically explaining that, like, sometimes your brain is just like, I don't want to do it. Like, I don't want to do it. And it's fighting through that. And so you train your body to not be disobedient to the mind, or not succumb to whenever your mind is like, okay, I don't want to do it. You need to train your body to be like, okay, we're doing it anyway.
Yeah, and of course, all things are nuanced. Perhaps your brain is wrong in that time. And so it's kind of like a trilogy, right? You have to kind of say if you separate yourself from yourself, you have your three advisors. You have your mind, you have your heart, and you have your gut.
Hmm.
What are each of those three saying?
That's
And
smart.
who do you need to listen to in this kind of situation and dynamic? Sometimes you do have to ignore your body to follow what your mind is saying. Sometimes you have to ignore your mind to do what your gut is telling you. It's
Yeah. Well, that's the art. Like, that's the game, is like figuring out, like, in what areas of life you have to follow which
Yeah.
parts of yourself.
Well, especially the connection between your subconscious mind and your gut, because you may have some kind of programming that's told you, oh, this is wrong your whole life. And your gut's telling you, no, no, no. But then in reality, that's probably the right way. You've been programmed wrong. Try to think of a good example for that. So growing up, the consensus was dietary cholesterol is bad. You should always separate the egg whites and the egg yolk and only eat the egg whites because there's cholesterol in the egg yolk. And especially for like my parents, I tell them I eat sometimes like 7 to 10 eggs a day. I'll eat a ton sometimes. They're like, aren't you worried about cholesterol? And their guts telling them just firing, no, no, no. But the truth is it's actually pretty healthy, you know, and there's a lot of misinformation behind all those cholesterol studies that have affected people's, perceptions on that.
Yeah, obviously, and that's a whole rabbit hole of itself. The general population have no idea what cholesterol even is and why it's actually a vital function of the body. It soothes the heart. It's also a helper of testosterone production, and so yeah, we could get into all the marketing evil campaigns or even spiritual evil campaigns of why cholesterol has been demonized and why the metrics of the acceptable levels on the tests are what they are, and are they even what is supposed to be acceptable or good. That's a whole rabbit hole conversation itself we could dive into as much or little as you'd like. But yeah, in regards to following your heart, following your intuition, it really comes down to following nature, right? The more you follow nature, the better off you're probably going to be. If you want to put a blanket kind of words to live by on it, how does the egg exist in nature? With the yolk, with the egg white,
Yeah.
Isolation isn't natural. Nothing exists in a vacuum. In nature, all things exist amongst the environment, and when you separate anything at a however micro of a level you want to get from how it appears in nature with what it appears in nature, it's something to be certainly cautious about, to say the least.
Yeah. Like you say that, and my mind immediately goes to like gym and workouts and stuff. Like, they have all the machines and all these things that isolate certain muscles so you can peak those ones. When in reality, I believe that just compound lifts that work a little bit of everything are going to be the ideal way to go.
Yeah, and you could extrapolate even further and talk about how functional lifts are probably the way to go for, again, what's your goal? What's your intended
Yeah.
purposes? Do you want to have the biggest biceps in the world? Then do an isolated bicep workout. Yes. But if you want to have a maximally performing body, do things that are helping your body perform the functions that you want it to perform. And that's not even the same for everybody. I think back to this commercial I saw, and I forget what it was a commercial for, but it was really cute, right? It was this old guy, and it shows him, he's old and he's not in shape, and he wants to get in shape, it appears. And so he works out, he goes to the gym, he takes a kettlebell, and he takes a kettlebell and he like just kind of lifts it up off the ground, and he lifts it off the ground. And then he takes the kettlebell and he lifts it a little higher, and he lifts it a little higher, and he lifts it a little higher. And then it's kind of just like a montage of him developing that motion till at the very end, he's taking the kettlebell and going like this, like lifting it up like up here, like lifting it up like up here. And at the very end of the commercial, you see it's Christmas Day, and he's standing by the tree, and then his little granddaughter runs up to him, and then he takes his granddaughter and she lifts him up here, and so she could put like the star on the top of the tree.
Yeah.
That's how people should be working out, to do what they need to do in life, to do the everyday functions. Of course, some are going to be more universal than others, but like I've seen a trend where women work out in certain ways that are like how they would hold their baby.
Yeah.
I've seen women, do things where it's like, okay, I'm holding a weight here in this arm like this as I like do this and do these kind of other exercises like this, and then they switch and then they hold, a weight here, and then they're doing things with this arm just
Yeah.
like they would do as they hold their baby and then do everything else in life that they got to do, bend down, pick stuff up, blah blah blah. That's awesome. That's how you work out, to do what you need to do in life.
Yeah, that was a great example. I've seen that commercial that you're talking about, but now I understand it. Like you helped me like piece the two together. The
Yeah.
difference between acting like an actual functionality workout versus just doing it to do it.
Yeah. Do you remember what the commercial was for? I don't. Maybe it was like, was it
I
candy?
I don't remember. I don't remember exactly. Maybe it's just like a Hallmark
Probably
commercial. Like
something completely unrelated, but
yeah,
It's for
yeah.
like a cancer, diabetes medication or something.
I bet it was for some kind of medication, something like
Pharmaceutical.
that. But
Well, Zachariah, we like to ask all our guests kind of a couple of final questions. Hypothetical example, let's say you are worth $100 billion and you have all the time in the world and all the money in the world. What would be like a plan that you would enact, some kind of humanitarian philanthropic plan that you don't even have to be there to oversee? You can just write a check and make this happen. What would be your grand plan to help the world?
I think the ultimate baseline is information. So I think perhaps I'm already enacting that plan and just waiting for those $100 million to show up in doing the podcast that I already do and doing the information spreading that I'm taking part in, because I think evil has run amok for far too long and been left unchallenged for far too long. And I think we live in interesting times where the pendulum is swinging back in the other direction. And Satan might be on the ropes, but he's certainly not going out without kicking and screaming. And I think it is time for those that have the voice of good and the fire of good within them to keep applying pressure and to not be quiet and to not sit down. And it was the wonderful people, or perhaps a mix of wonderful or otherwise people, sharing information on the internet that kind of triggered myself to come to be the man that I am before you today, for the better. And I wish to be that for as many people as humanly possible. So, money or otherwise, I will be here saying the things that need to be said, trying to have it resonate with as many people as possible, and trying to be a bastion of the proper good voice and
Man,
the voice of God.
great answer.
great
I
answer.
love it.
I love that. It reminded me of I used to have it in my Instagram bio. It's I'm a spiritual being using my guidance system provided by God to do good in this world so I can find my way back home.
Yeah, I mean, what else is there, right? There's no other, more fulfilling thing to
Hmm.
do in life than to spread goodness, And am
Yeah.
I right on everything? Perhaps not. Do I remain open-minded to reevaluate my stances or my positionings? Yeah, always, and I try to never say never these days. But conversations have to be had, because that's how we all advance as a society. And we have a lot of advancing to do, because although we live in times where everything is claimed to be progressive in the modern world, it's actually regressive at best and absolute degenerate at worst. And we need to get back to a baseline of humanity and humanitarianism as a
Hmm.
society. And that doesn't happen through silence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you gave us your grand plan information, spreading this information. So real quick again, can you just like tell everybody where they can find you, your podcast, if if it's somebody that's searching for this information, where can they find that stuff from you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my personal brand, I am Zach the Health King. That's ZAK, the Health King. And you could find my content at zachthehealthking.com. That has my podcast, which is called The Health King's Court, Ancient Wisdom, Modern Health. You could find it through there on all the assorted platforms that it's on. It's on everything from YouTube, until it gets deleted on YouTube, to Rumble, Spotify, Audible, whatever you prefer to listen to your podcasting. I have socials. I'm at Zach the Health King on everything: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I'm Health King Zach on Twitter, because you couldn't fit the whole Zach the Health King in your handle.
Mhm.
And you can connect with me there. I am available for consultations on anything. If you do want to consult with me, I have paid consultations that you could book. I'll help you with whatever you'd like to chat about to the best of my abilities. I am not a medical doctor. I am not your medical doctor. I do not give medical advice. I could give interesting health perspectives. However, if you'd like to learn more about cancer specifically and the organization that I'm involved with that helps people with their cancer, you can email me at zfrank@beatcancer.org. If you'd like to check out our free counseling, you can email me there and I'll get you where you need to be. If you'd like to attend our free weekly group sessions, they happen at Thursdays, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You come on, get your questions answered, and participate in the conversation. Be a part of the community. That's absolutely free as well. If you'd like to take our educational program and course that is teaching the fundamentals of what we do to prevent or heal cancer and is also a holistic cancer coach certification program, you could find that at www.beatcancer.store. That's beatcancer.store. And other than that, you can find me at ZachTheHealthKing@gmail.com. That's probably way too many avenues I already gave at the end there, but
It's all good.
Perfect.
The more ways that people can find you and get this information, the better.
yeah.
Well, Zakariya, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation with us.
Yeah, this is
I
great.
really enjoyed this. It was really insightful for myself as well.
Yeah. No, thank you for having me, gentlemen. It was absolutely a pleasure. And I would love to collaborate in any way moving forward as well.
Absolutely.
Loved it.